Hello and welcome to episode 308 of the Awesome Comics Podcast, a place where the small press makes one hell of a big noise. I'm Vince Hunt, writer of MI666, and joining me as always are the creator of the webcomic Vanguard, Dan Butcher.
Hello.
And the windmill man, known as Tony Esmond.
I've come on holiday by mistake. But by the time you listen to this, I shall be home. So you won't understand the full pain. I've made you go through it, you two, haven't I? With constant pictures of me soaked in the rain and things.
Yeah.
Grim beach. Looks like something out in the post-apocalypse.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've bought a pair of binoculars. I've been going bird watching with all my mates.
So, what?
You know,
What?
you're staying in a windmill. Is it like fucking... Is it like Trumpton? You know, when you step out, like Windy Miller steps out and...
You can't put your head out and look round because it's going to get knocked off. You have to wait for the thing to sweep round before you can step out.
Oh, God.
And every time I walk out, I do a little fart and I look at the woman who works out, I went, Windy Miller.
Are they going to welcome you back?
I'm not the easiest of guests.
No.
I already had a row with them about the time of dinner.
Yeah,
well, I mean,
to
be honest, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, silly, isn't it?
But then again, it's ridiculous. You go to a place that has almost no signal, and just you can't get food from anywhere.
It's honestly, I feel like the rest of the world's died. There's no way you can go and get anything to eat. I'm sort of wandering around this village.
Is that why you've got binoculars, so you can just see if there's any sign of civilization?
Well, I sent you the why, and it's something spotting. It's my new thing.
Yeah.
Is it going to be one of those holidays you kind of like pleased to get back home from? Like, oh, thank fuck. Yeah, look.
We're leaving a little bit early.
Yeah, there's my front door. There's the fucking bed. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Even the dog.
Yeah. You're leaving early, or that's always not a
bad
great
sign,
is it?
So Tony's away on holiday, and he's still calling in to do this show.
Exactly. Thank you.
Because apparently this is the slice of sanity that he needs.
We've got a big one this week. We're very excited.
Yeah.
We've done our research.
We planned this for last December, didn't we?
Is that when we brought it up? Was it
don't big it up too much, just in case. we don't want to oversell anything. Let's never oversell anything.
No. But the idea came about that. Let's do it when this thing is released, and then it wasn't released.
Oh, that's right. The beginning is a very delicate time, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. This week,
Dan will be quoting from it all.
Yeah. We're going to be talking a little bit about. We've touched upon like sort of comic book adaptions and stuff before, but we wanted to sort of rather than look at like comics turned into movies, etc. We wanted to go the other way around and like some movie franchises or like other sort of big screen stuff that have then been turned into comic themed series and stuff. So we're going to have a bit of fun talking about that, maybe ranting, raving, bigging them up, how we feel about it.
We're going the other way, aren't we? We often talk about comics become movies, but we're talking about movies become comics.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting, isn't it? There's a lot of questions there, aren't there?
Yeah.
And of course, the conversation is going to keep going, so jump in once this show's done online on the socials, etc. But you know what always makes me feel social? It's reading comics on Comic House.
Yes.
Because you did the whole thing yourself on that one.
Because I know I'm not the only person doing it, because there's loads of people with great taste checking out our lovely sponsor.
I wonder if that's Sybil Danning comics on there that I read out to you earlier.
It could be. I mean, to be fair though, Tony, you buy 1 million comics.
I don't at the moment. There's none around here.
Well, that's why you took a suitcase full with you.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's more than a suitcase full.
Thank God for Comic House.
On Comic House. Yep, because they have thousands of comics on there now, especially on their app. But for those that don't know, Comic House are an indie comic marketplace with a difference. They love indie comics as much as we do. And we talk about them every week. So if you go to comichouse.com, there's a huge selection of titles on the database. Creators can self-publish on there, self-publish and just list their books on there, and it's another avenue to start selling your work. But they also have a brilliant digital app, which is being added to all the time. There's loads of great, different and varied and interesting comics on there from all genres, and it's being added to constantly. What's on there at the moment, Dan?
We've got the Gears miniseries on there, Jason and the Argonauts Kingdom of Hades miniseries. We've got South of Bedlam, Little Death, The Bizarre Adventures of Gilbert and Sullivan, Let's slide open the next page. Yeah, there's lots of news, not a number of new comics on this one. The Erotic Adventures of Space Babe 113.
Oh, I like the sound of that.
Chlorophyll, Pumpernickel 1, Watching, original graphic novel there. We've got Sugar, Life as a Cat, The Voice of the Hall, The Bad Bad Place, Broke Down, and Four Dead Bodies, Volume 1, Issue 4. Extra Shitty Stories, and Of the Same Coin, Issue 1. So there's a whole myriad of titles that have just been added.
I honestly thought you were going to finish that list like about 2 minutes ago, and it just kept going.
I did as well. It kept going, didn't it?
There's lots of stuff.
There's
going on
there. There's a new comic coming on there this week, isn't there?
Yes, Vanguard Issue 19. Yes. It's already ready to be uploaded, so that'll be uploaded sometime this week, and you can check out the adventures of the Wolf's Head and crew.
Nice one. Oh, hang on. No, I thought it'd stop raining. It ain't.
Well, then you've got a perfect excuse to sit inside and read comics from Comic House. Then, if you want to find out more about it, it's only £3 a month membership, and like I say, it's being added to all the time. There's a 14-day free trial, so to find out more and just get stuck into loads of great indie comics, then check out comichouse.com. There you go. Now, obviously, we're going to get stuck into some fun movie stuff, but there was obviously a bit of news this week that I know, Dan, you wanted to talk a bit about.
Yeah, it's really tragic news. Kentaro Miura, who created the Berzerk series, he was born in 1996, passed away earlier this month in May. Berzerk started in 1989, and he did it straight up until his passing earlier this month, and I think it had over like 50 million copies in circulation, making it like one of the biggest manga series of its time. His impact, some of the work that says he had a big impact on his stuff, and you can see this if you ever read the comics. Fist of the North Star,
exactly.
Violence Jack. You got the Paul Verhoeven films. He fucking loved the trio of Robocop, Starship Troopers, and Total Recall. The Hellraiser series. There's a series of characters in it called the God Hand, which look like they could have come straight out of Hellraiser. And he's a big fan of MC Escher and Hieronymus Bosch. And
cool.
Lots of that you can see in his architecture where he draws. And there's always kind of like that story of how hard those artists work on the manga. And through his books, someone annotated or gathered all these notes he'd put about like how many days off he had per year. And I read a couple out just to kind of give you a kind of an insight into how much the man was working. I lost 5 pounds doing nothing. I wonder why. That was 1993. For the past 2 months, I've slept an average of less than 4 hours a night, 1993. And I'll be 27 in July. Looking back, it's been 27 years in comics. Is this what I want? 1993. Since moving, my sleep has been less than 4 hours. I jumped forward a couple of years. My days off are half a day every 2 months. I haven't taken 2 consecutive days off in 4 years. I'm getting tired of it. This week, I've been able to get out, and chocolate has become my precious food. I didn't get to see the cherry blossom live this year either, and that was 2011. So here's a man who was just absolutely consumed by his work, and he was the sole creator, writer, artist on the series, as far as I'm aware. And mate, it's just like I can only say like you've got to take care of yourself as an artist, and I'm not pushing any blame onto the man, but
puts it into perspective.
It does.
That's incredible, man. I mean, I admire the Japanese people for many things, but their work ethic is definitely one of them. But that's the next level.
That's just the next level. I mean, I was reading like how he used to go into his works and like correct pixels after they were inked to make sure they're absolutely spot on. And if you look at the kind of the workmanship that he puts out, there's been people that posting stuff so detailed.
A lot of other manga is so detailed, isn't it? It really is.
I think that's why it takes so long for him to put the books out, is because it was he had to spend so long on the artwork and making sure it was done to a standard. But he kind of joins that list of creators that they had a project that they were working on, and because of their passing, that it's never been realized. And there's a tragedy in the who tried to write those characters, and they're not them. He was the creator on that. Like, if you passed, no one could write Hercules. Same with Vanguard or yourself into a red mask. I feel like that's the voice of them.
Yeah, and there's a number of parallels these days, isn't there, in comics? And I think one of the main ones I always think of is the recent end of Slain. You know, how I don't want anyone else to make it.
No, yeah.
I think it's the same. I don't think anyone else should make his comic.
No, yeah, I don't think they could tell the story, because I've misunderstood the story at times when I first started, and I thought it was kind of like a one-man revenge story, but then ultimately it changes into something where the main character, kind of the edge of kind of revenge and anger kind of softens off a little, and he becomes like accepting of past traumas. And a lot of these characters have this thing where they've had past traumas, and then you see them deal with them one way or another through the comic, and how their character changes and evolves. And it's not a very happy or an uplifting comic, I would say, but it's a fantastic work of art.
It's dark. It's a very dark comic.
Very, very dark. Yeah, very adult themes. So
I've only read the first one, which you got me to read, and apart from the sort of the way the manga reads, I was really blown away with the visuals. Yeah. It's not what you think. It's not what you think when you think of manga. You think of this sort of almost like childish thing, don't you? But it's not. It's quite the opposite. It's a sort of. It's almost like Vertigo. Vertigo does manga in a way, isn't it?
I'd agree. It's for a lot of people, it's one of their first introductions, because when you start manga or anime, I'd imagine like at some point someone would have jumped up and checked out Berzerk and think, bloody hell, this is quite a lot. But they don't. We never get around to doing that bloody show on the subject. But like,
one day.
The kind of the level of kind of violence and stuff that they're willing to go to, and the extremes they're willing to push. Like, wow, okay. I remember working in Waterstones, like 20, 25 years ago, and we had the books come in for the Battle Royale. Remember that film? At the time? And that was translated from the manga. There was originally a fiction book, then it became the manga, and then they made the live action film.
I wondered how that went. Okay.
Yeah, I had the books on like the top shelves, and not advised like the young kids not to read them, because it was fucking full on like sex, violence. I was like, this is a bit much.
Did he make a few quid over there being a movie of it? Was there a movie of it? I'm guessing there must have been.
They did an animated series. I think that was in the 80s or 90s, and then they did another series of films called the Golden something arc. And recently there was a 3D series, but that wasn't very well liked. Okay. So it's hard, because it's one of those, the style is so sort of entrenched with the character. When you try and change it was a bit like, does this really work? But
it's visually very iconic. It's very. There's nothing else like it, is there?
Yeah.
When you look at it,
and the character's name is Guts, isn't he? Which is such a. You never forget that name.
No, such a visceral sort of Guts. The Black Swordsman. Yeah, so it's an interesting one. I was reading up we've got my son. He's kind of getting into his manga and anime, and we got him there's a magazine called Neo that comes out once a month.
Right.
Does like all kind of like Eastern stuff. And I was reading about, you heard of that? I've mentioned it a couple of times, and Perch has mentioned it, the series Demon Slayer.
Yes. Yeah, very
it's real big. Yeah. And essentially that popularity, from what I was reading in the articles and the experts I was talking to, has gained prominence through lockdown and the pandemic, because the comic and the manga wasn't, excuse if I'm butchering the terms, but it wasn't particularly well known. It was read and liked. It wasn't like doing massive numbers. And when the series aired, and everyone kind of like, they're sitting around watching this stuff, the fucking numbers for the books just went through the roof.
Oh, good.
And then and that impact, also the film that's just recently come out, and I think it's going to have limited screenings in the UK. That was one of the first films to come out when Japan came out of lockdown.
Okay.
So the numbers on it were like astronomical, because everyone wanted to go back, and this is the first one they saw. So really, by like, it's a quality piece of work, but it's got a lot more exposure because of current circumstances. And I was reading that, I thought, wow, this is fucking we'd never have that over here. This wouldn't happen, would it?
No, it's brilliant, man.
Well, it's a shame.
I'm more in. I must read it. I've got the first volume which I read that you sent me. I must get back into it, I think. There's sort of oversized hardbacks on there of it, I think.
Yeah, I'm slowly working my way through them. I've got 3, and I'm going to get 4. They're like £30, I think, but they're absolute chonky books.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I might give that a go.
Yeah, it's a good way to get into it because I was reading that, so this is good, and then it's sort of like it tells the backstory, and once you hear the back, you kind of get sucked into the backstory. Like, bloody hell, where's this going to go? Unfortunately, we'll never find out. But
yeah, sadly.
Yeah. So so moving on from that.
Yeah.
Cool.
But it's always a good time to discover a piece of work, especially one like that, because you do literally have to see it for yourselves. Folks,
yeah, it's fantastic work.
Yeah. So with that, we're just gonna jump straight in, shall we? Because like we were saying, comics have a long tradition of big screen adaptions, or they have a long relationship with other mediums. I know TV's all the rage at the moment, but let's face it, we always used to talk about the movies. But we're not going this week. We're not going to talk about just comic book heroes being turned into multi-million-dollar epics that people will hashtag and talk about endlessly until your eyeballs bleed.
It was a different time as well, wasn't it? Because when a film came out, you wouldn't see that on VHS for bloody years.
Yeah.
As when I was younger, I'd eat up all the stuff like Aliens. I want the Alien comic because that's the only way to get more Alien stuff.
Yeah, I used to do the same with the novels as well. The novels and the comics. So there was a few that always came out first, and there was Star Wars, Star Trek, and stuff like even like Superman 3. I think the first exposure I had to that was in a comic.
Yeah.
And you used to be able to get them like that, didn't you?
Yeah. But if you explain to someone now that you couldn't just look up a clip from a film that you really like or see pictures or high-res imagery, I don't think they'd be able to sort of take that on. But then it was such a rarity to kind of have access to that stuff.
Yeah.
You'd devour anything that came along.
Yeah. And a lot of the adaptions had photographs in them as well, didn't they? I know we'll get onto this, but they were in the back of them and stuff, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah. So rather than talk about the superhero stuff, from comics to movies, we're going from movies to comics this week. And sometimes it's not the movie adaptions, not just the straight up here's a version of it. We're talking about like when you take these things and then you do an adaptation, but sometimes it moves on to other things, and sometimes there's not even an adaptation. Sometimes they'll just run into series just by themselves, which I know, for instance, Dark Horse Comics were a massive component of doing that for years and years and years. So we've each picked a particular franchise, because they are franchises, to sort of discuss, and there's going to be some interesting things, because it's interesting that you say that, Dan, like, that you wanted to devour the Alien comics because you just wanted more Alien. Alien's one of the better versions of it, I will say. Alien isn't one of the ones we're going to discuss, by the way. This isn't one of the choices, but Aliens, I think, sometimes was one of the better components of comic book franchises, just being sort of maintained and stuff.
It's patchy, but there's some real high points on there.
Yeah.
And certainly there's been some decent recent stuff. James Stokow's Dead Orbit and things like that, and never mind
Marvel.
Yeah, no.
Sometimes people just don't understand what they're doing with it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think we've all got fears with like what Marvel's going to do with the Alien and stuff. Like, I don't
really want to see
Alien versus fucking Wolverine.
Yeah, I don't want to see it. They've already had that. They've got the Brood. That's what they are.
Yeah, the Brood is.
Yeah. And I get. All right, let's just kick off with my one.
Okay.
To stay onto this sort of theme and the fact that we don't want to see all that, my pick is one of my favourite sort of. I hate the word franchise, but I'm probably going to keep using it throughout the whole episode. Is Predator. One of my favourite films of all time, in my opinion. My favourite sort of monster of all time, especially movie monster of all time. I think it's genius. And I just Predator 1 and Predator 2, I'm just all about it. But I don't, and I've got a couple of Predator books here, Dark Horse ones. For me personally, the thing about this character as well is that I love, and I think movies play up this play to this strength, especially with if you take Aliens as well, is the not knowing, is the unknown, is the where does that come? The viewer's like, oh well, where did they come from? What does that look like? And I know a lot of this is all my opinion, by the way. I know there's probably 95% of people who are going to disagree with me here. But for me personally, I don't necessarily. I like hypothesizing. I don't necessarily want to see it.
Yes, I totally agree.
That's where comics and movies sometimes differ, don't they?
Yeah.
Movies are almost better at having things in the shadows till the last act.
Yeah.
Where comics, you kind of don't expect that, do you? I suppose.
Yeah.
But you can see a fleeting image in the fact they can control how long you see something for. On the page, you don't have that. I can look at that fucking comic page all day and all night for one.
Yeah, I mean from a visual perspective as well, because comics obviously are the visual medium, and the Predator is something that it's obviously all based on vision. Never mind the heat vision and all this nonsense and blah 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 blah. But one of the cool things about them is they turn invisible and you can't see them. So how do you make a Predator comic that keeps that, and that builds tension, that creates a massive amount of tension. The thing about the comics is they show them so much much that I'm like, and sometimes, and I think this will probably go across the board with lots of these sort of franchises, I know the artists work their hardest, and I'm not knocking anything, but it's a difficult design to get right, and sometimes people don't have the chops to do it. No. I'm not naming names, but sometimes it just looks like it's not really a creature or a design that can fit into your normal standard, just say a DC house style. Do you know what I mean? If I was to say that sort of brand, it won't necessarily work like that. It has odd proportions and just.
I think you've got. It doesn't fit into the house style format either. The 20-page format is. When you think about Predator 1 and 2, how much screen time do you actually see the creature? You don't. It's barely on there. But if you've got a 4-issue mini, you're going to have to put the Predator in it every issue.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, the beautiful thing about movies is like, those characters where 75 minutes of the movie someone's been talking about, when this person turns up, everyone's dead. The reputation is built up, so when this character finally reveals, appears, you're like, oh fucking hell, it's a thing. But comics have to, also comics have to grab you immediately. And if you're making, I understand, if you're making a Predator comic, people who are buying the Predator comic want to see Predators in their comics, so you can't have 3 issues of an invisible character.
Out of the ones we picked, I think
on the cover,
Predator's a tricky one, because for me, there's what Predator has to say is said largely in the first film. Yeah. What can you expand upon that isn't said? Like you said, Vince. I don't want to know too much about the Predator backstory
And Predator 2, I'm a massive fan of Predator 2, and Predator 2 was one of those.
Predator 2's great.
More the same. They sprinkled a little bit of where they, some history or where they may have came from or how long they've been about.
Yeah.
They didn't give you enough. It was one of those, here's enough to keep you thinking. But now...
there was always the big wow moment when everyone went, fucking hell, it's an alien head in the back of this.
Yeah.
Because that was the big moment, wasn't it?
Yeah. But we're now at a point that my favourite comic book movie monster of all time has no weight, I don't think, in a lot of times, because it's CGI, or even if it is, and I love the man in the suit, I think it should always be the man in the suit, but because they have to show them all the time, they essentially just look like lumpy wrestlers moving about, which doesn't work. And I'm looking at you, Aliens vs Predator, because you're shit.
They also change him from being like the bad guy to being the anti-hero, which is kind of
Yeah, there's the sense of honour that you have. I love that sort of system with this character that,
There's a samurai thing a bit going on, isn't
there? Yeah. There's a thought process. It's not one of those, for instance, an alien kills on instinct, or, even if it takes the bodies away for, to be impregnated, blah, 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 blah. But it's more of an instinctual, insectoid-like creature. A predator...
I mean, an alien is a tiger on board a ship, isn't it?
Yeah. Whereas a predator is literally a big game hunter thinking and strategizing, and and that's one of the things I love about it. And comics have the ability to do that really well, but I just think
Well, let me pose this. I've been thinking a bit about this about comics and movies. Let me pose you this one then, Vince. When you see, because there's been a lot of fucking Predator comics now and there.
Yeah,
a lot of Predator movies. Never mind comics, but there's a lot of comics.
And I will say this. I'm ranting and raving. I haven't read most of them.
Okay, well, that was going to be my question to you: is what would make you buy one now? Would it be the fact that it's Predator? Which kind of, when I was a kid, when I was growing up, if I saw, like I don't know, if I saw a movie character in a comic, I might buy it because of that. $6 Million Man, I'd buy it because I like the $6 Million Man. But now I think. Is it the same with you, where it depends on the creative team, or? I
think probably the creative team would probably now, especially where it is at the moment, even though I don't want those comics. But if there was a creative team that's like, Daniel Warren Johnson's doing what?
Yeah, he's got to be the go-to for me, man.
Yeah.
Him or Harron. Imagine Harron doing it as well.
Yeah, but for me, for this sort of franchise, what you have to get is, if you jump on board, you think, oh yes, I'm doing Predator. You have to then take that and just go, brilliant, I'm doing Predator. Push the Predator to the side and concentrate on the characters.
Oh man, it's an ensemble piece, isn't it? The first two are great ensemble pieces.
Yeah.
Great characters. And the second one, I love the characters in the second. Even the fact he's bouncing that fucking golf ball all the time makes me laugh.
He starts as it's an action film, an 80s action film, and then it becomes like horror thriller.
Yeah,
and the first one's like
it's missing an action with an alien in it.
Yeah, and then the second one's like more like a kind of like police crime.
Yeah,
police drama, and then
and then dropped into a gang
goes
war.
Off.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
drop an unstoppable alien into a gang war.
That whole bit at the beginning of Predator 2, when there's like the street shootout with the Colombian gang, is fucking dynamite. That's so good.
Yeah,
and it draws heavily on what I'm going to be talking about.
But also, I think with the first two, and there's a certain lore that is built up. For instance, they build up, it has to be there's a heat wave, or they're drawn to warm places, and then you get something like Predator Cold War, and then you're like, why are they in the Arctic? Or like Aliens versus Predator is like, oh, there's a pyramid under the ice. Fuck off. Although I will say, the Aliens versus Predator, the original book, which I've got in front of me now, is one of my favourite graphic novels of all time. I think it's one of the best.
Is that set on some kind of sort of far off-world sort of ranch planet or something?
Yes.
Am I right in thinking that's one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it does it right, because it's like, it's not... Predator's normally based in a sort of modernish, sort of, contemporary sort of setting, isn't it? Aliens should never be that. Never be that.
Yeah, I think you're right, man.
Whereas the book literally does it. It'll make more sense if it's in the alien time, if that makes sense.
I think Predator can be historical, because doesn't he hand him a flintlock gun or something?
That's right.
I've got no problem with that.
Yeah. But that story also just handled it very well. Like the first Aliens vs Predator, because they built up, like you say, this planet, this desert planet where there's ranchers, and you had all these characters. So that when these characters were being picked off, you knew them a bit by the time they were picked off.
That's the point, man. That's what makes a good horror film. You've got to know these people, so you care about them. Yeah, and that's what they do in both those films, and that's what they should be doing in the comic.
Yeah, there should be, and also that particular story. I know I'm merging into Aliens a little bit here. I'm playing a bit fast and loose with the rules, but with that story as well, there is a sense of like, there's a horrible creature here on one side, there's a horrible creature here on the other side, and oh god, there's these poor humans in the middle, and they don't stand a fucking chance. There is that sense of like, there's always this sense of like, the normal people, no matter even if you're great commandos, they shouldn't stand a fucking chance. They shouldn't.
No.
But most of the time, like when I see some of these adaptions, they want to do the quippy one-liners from the movies. They want to do the flashy sort of, last thing they say before they dispatch like the enemy, or and they just end up like beating the crap out of these these predators. And I just think, no, these things would have fucking ripped your head off.
Yeah, it's just thinking, not even in the same fucking ballpark with them.
Yeah,
And
I think I'm getting on my fanboy soapbox a little bit, but I think it's because for me, this particular movie is very close to my heart, and but for me, it's not done very well. I understand.
Is there an adaptation of the movie? Can you buy
If there is, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there is, but it was like, you know, sometimes when you hear of adaptations that were made by someone called Square Comics or something in 1988, and you're like, what the fuck?
I can't recall there being an adaptation of Predator.
No, I'm trying to think of one. Yeah, I can't think of it.
Which is strange because they did everything.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this then. Okay, here's a question for you regarding Predator.
Mm-hmm.
You're forced to put it in a crossover in a comic, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with mine first. What comic do you put the Predator in? Right, I'll let you think while I give my answer. My answer would be Lone Wolf and Cub.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah,
that's where I'd go with it.
That would be an interesting one.
What about you guys?
The thing is, my brain is doing like the fruit machine, spinning through lots of things.
Yeah, I know.
No.
Look into your shelf.
Because I'm not. Yeah. I don't know. I'm just not interested in seeing.
That's what I'm saying. They force you to do it. So they say like, "Here's £1 million. You got to put it in a comic."
I would love to start a comic that had no reference to Predator in it. Any of the new, any sort of like pre sort of sales on it wouldn't mention the Predator, and it'd begin like a normal everyday comic, and then the murders would start, and you think, as a reader, fucking hell, this is a bit like Predator. And then introduce it that way, so it's complete.
Like the sort of comic no one in any marketing department would ever let you do.
Yeah, they would never let you do that.
Brilliant.
Yeah. It's all like quite a crime story or something, and then the fucking Predator turns up at the end of issue 1 or something.
Yeah, I'm doing like a Conan the Barbarian kind of story, and then fucking hell, look who's turned up. Yeah, no, I'd like that sort of thing. Yeah.
It's got to be more of a street level sort of a story, really, hasn't it?
What about Solomon Kane? Mind that'd be right.
See, a historical one would be quite interesting.
I think so. Yeah,
I think. I certainly, I know one that every time I see it, and I don't know how it's got sequels. Archie. What?
Yeah. Well, he's had everything, hasn't he? Punisher.
Yeah. I just don't.
He's been a vampire. He's been a zombie. He's been a werewolf. Yeah. It's all going on.
I mean, the Archie comics are
They've done.
Bear in mind, it's a little shout out to Archie because we have reached out to the editor of the Archie comics to come on.
And they're a massive franchise, but it was one of those when I read it, I was like, "What? Oh well,
done
that's a nice event." And then it got a sequel. I was like, "What?"
I
think that's just a numbers game, man.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day,
but going that different way, going in that different direction, sometimes you hit gold, don't you?
Yeah.
Just the absurdity of fucking doing it. You're like, this is nuts.
Yeah, sometimes
people are like, want to go see it just for that.
Yeah, and people get on the right wavelength for it and do it well. I think it's I don't know. The problem I have with these sort of things, it's like such and such versus Predator, is they always seem to be a very much a spotlight on the whoever is facing the Predator. Do you know what I mean? The character is always like, "Oh, I'm a massive fan of Batman, so I know he'd be able to beat the Predator quite easily." And it's like, "Oh, well, they don't necessarily give love to the character to the person who's the second half of the verses. The second half of the verses.
That's why the X-Men ain't going to work. Yeah, the X-Men ain't going to work with Predator because they've already done it with the Brood. They've already laid eggs in Storm, whatever fucking happened that time. You know, it's all been done.
Yeah. And even if you think of other ones, like, I just think, oh, Hellboy. And one of my things was like, Hellboy, interesting.
Yeah.
It wouldn't. I can't see it working. And it's because it has those. When you choose a title sort of character, you're immediately thinking of the legacy of that character. And so many times the Predator is brought in to be a foil rather than sharing the credit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think in many ways the Predator is just a story technique as opposed to a person.
Yeah. That's why for me, like the Aliens and Predator, the first book worked because they were both on the same level, and then they built the story on top of that. But as soon as
you got to build it on top of the humans in the middle of it.
As soon as you put Superman versus Aliens or Superman versus Predator or Judge Dredd versus Predator or whatever, it's unbalanced. It's completely unbalanced because also. The readers that come into this, if you're a Judge Dredd fan, if you're a huge Judge Dredd fan and you're going to buy Judge Dredd versus Predator, you don't want to see Judge Dredd get a run for his money necessarily against this alien that you don't really care about. So it's always angled more.
There's only one Judge Dredd, and there's many Predators and many aliens. So you know exactly where that fucking comic's going.
Exactly.
Yeah, straight into the pockets of rebellion from the Xanath.
Yeah. So I'm partially. I don't. I've been very much like, I'm not interested in it. Part of me, I've got my eye on what they're going to do with these franchises, with the Predator franchise in the future. I'm not going to necessarily buy it. I'm not going to buy it, probably, unless it just blows my mind. But
keep an eye on it, though.
I'll keep an eye on it.
What writer, Vince? What writer would you like to see do it?
Rick Remender.
Yeah, he's good, solid, isn't he?
Yeah. Or I think Cullen Bunn would do a really fucking good one. But that's because
Aaron's another good one, isn't he?
Yeah, Aaron's a good one. Someone that's not afraid to handle sort of quite a dark tale. But like you say, I think a gritty crime story. Do you know what I mean? It is probably the way to go, rather than big powers versus big powers.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? I mean, if you really go, it's comics, isn't it? It's not movies, it's comics. Yeah. That's the thing we keep telling ourselves, don't we? It's comics. So how far do you go with that? I mean, do you do I was trying to think, what do you do? A Hernandez brothers Predator story? Yeah. I'd read the fuck out of it, but it wouldn't be the Predator.
If I was gonna pitch, just off the top of my head now, pitch a story, pitch a comic that would never be made. And it's Predator versus someone. It would just be a Predator, but I would. This is going to sound crazy. I would pit Kraven the Hunter versus a Predator. Yeah, so it's Hunter versus Hunter. And they're against each other and it's
in the Savage Land.
Yeah,
easy.
Something like that. Yeah. There's got to be something like that. And then you can.
So they both go after the same prey, but then that prey gets them eliminated. Then they realise.
Yeah. Or they're going after the same thing. And this thing that they're going after is the main person of the fucking book. And then they're trying to survive as two things are coming against each other. Do you know what I mean? But like I say, that's the sort of story that you'd never be able to sell to anyone because there'd be no money in it.
Are you aware of the comic Black Diamond, which was Sybil Danning's comic? I would do
classic.
Predator meets Black Diamond, and it's just about aliens boning.
Yeah.
I would read that.
Yeah, me too.
I think, I think this franchise is probably highlights how often comics have done the verses as well.
I mean, that's done the whole gambit of good ones and bad ones.
And to segue us probably onto Dan's would be quite nicely because out
of all the titles we're talking about, Predator would be the one I'd like to write least. Because I fuck knows what I'd do with it. I've got no ideas what I'd do with it.
I would like to write one, but it would probably be fairly generic and something, it would be a Predator story, just is set somewhere else. It's something unique.
I'd do it as a YA teen romance book.
Oh, yeah, lovely. Oh, no, fucking hell.
Predator's daughter.
No, I tell you what. Tubby, do a fucking pirate story. I bet they already have. The listeners are probably shouting us. But
in the films, they tried to introduce that Civil War thing, and it's like, no, don't do this.
Yeah.
No. The Predators bring in a suit to Earth so that humans can fuck off. That's just awful.
Yeah,
it's an awful idea.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea that Dan goes next because Dan and I are going to just launch into lots of quotes. Go to town on the last one.
But they're Predator is a franchise that's obviously, for me, been the victim of the versus thing. Versus of a title character. And there's one particular character, like the Dan's talk about now, which is a title character. And they've had a few crossovers as well. Including Terminator was a versus, wasn't it? That didn't have
Talking about Robocop.
I think it's been watered down. Your choice, Vince. I think Predator has been so watered down over the years.
Yeah,
people are a bit cynical, but I think so. Yeah, but I think Dan's is still something. I'm like, oh, okay.
I think obviously it's no surprise. Dan's is Robocop.
Yeah.
Do you think?
Go Robo.
Do you think? Do you think Robocop has more potential in it due to the satirical nature of the content?
There's a tragic quality as well as
I think so. I think there's areas to be explored with it. I mean, I've got to hold my hand up it. I haven't read Robocop versus Terminator, but after reading a brief synopsis, I was like, that sounds really interesting. The idea about that. Have you guys read that?
No, I haven't read it. No, I haven't.
Well, essentially, it's the fact that they're set in the story. They're set in the same universe, and there's going to be like the robot kind of genocide of like, humanity, Judgment Day, and Robocop's a key link in bringing that about. So the Resistance of the future send back a human to take out Robocop, and Skynet sends back a Terminator to stop the human from killing Robocop. And then the story goes from there.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, so that's kind of like turning the formula on its head a bit. Where,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot to play out with that, because obviously he kind of straddles the two of being both man and machine, but all cop.
One of the best posters of all time.
I'll tell you, so I've got two comics of Robo to talk about, and then we can kind of go into the subject more briefly. Tony recently gifted me the first issue because I was on the hunt for it.
Oh, yeah.
It came out in 87. The comic, I think it was 87. Let me have a quick look. 88. I was 11 years old, and I was fucking all about Robocop. I'd seen Robocop on a shady VHS that you could barely watch because the interference was so bad. So I was just eating up, and I was down my nan and granddad's, and my nan took me down to the corner shop, wherever, and I saw Marvel's Robocop the movie special, and like flipped my shit. And like she got it for me, and I read it through and kind of filled in the gaps of what the film kind of left out. I say that, but it's an absolutely toothless adaptation of the film. It's written by Bob Harris, pencilers Alan Kupperberg and Javier Solterez.
Oh, Kupperberg's a good guy, yeah. I like his stuff.
Inked by Tony Zuniga, letters by Austin Mass, and editor is Michael Higgins. And essentially it's the film, but with all the edges filed off. The same story. There's no kind of swearing. The violence is kind of essentially what you'd find in a Marvel comic that you do for not kids. But the likenesses are there on some characters. On the cover, it's done by Mark Texeira. And
I asked you if it was Texeira, and I think I must have guessed that from just the cover.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a question I've got written down, Dee. I don't know if you want to talk about it now. Is how much is it important to you, the likenesses? I mean, it's a difficult one, isn't it, when you're adapting a movie? It's kind of...
It is. Yeah, I mean, there's... I don't know how much it was at the time, but, like, the Robocop in the comic is not kind of spot-on movie perfect, but it's good enough to know that this is... That's the character. And the artist has done a good enough job to sort of, like... Okay, this is it. Like, there's a sequence where he's firing his gun, and it's like, well, that's not the Auto 9. You're not. I don't know where you're getting that from. That bit.
Okay.
But it's one thing's interesting. I've reread this. At the end of the comic, there was a scene that they cut out of the film originally, and after Murphy goes out the boardroom, and like the old man says, "Oh, nice shooting someone. What's your name?" and he says Murphy. There's a sequence that cuts to Anne Lewis, his partner, who was shot by Clarence at the finale, and she gets interviewed by the Channel 9 news team, whatever the news channel was, to make sure she's okay. And she says, "Oh yeah, I'm fine." And every cop knows if you can't take the heat, you stay out of the kitchen, which is a line referenced earlier from what's his name? Dick Jones says it. Yeah. He says every cop knows you can't take the heat, you stay out of the kitchen. And it cuts to like another news story where, you know, the guy throughout the film who says, "I'd buy that for $1."
Yeah.
He gets arrested for like child sex crimes or something like that. Yeah. At the end of the film, it's like, it's a news story that it cuts away to he's been arrested for like
I'd forgotten that.
Sexual misconduct. No, but that was filmed but never put in.
Okay.
It was never in the film, but like it was either in the screenplay or they filmed it and it was never aired. I can't remember.
So I've got access to an early copy of it or something, you mean?
Yeah, that's what I wondered. Did they get to, like the Alien comic that you and Dave Kennedy talked about, did they get to see an early cut? Or did they work on the screenplay?
They were flown to the States, weren't they, to look at an early version of it? They were flown to the studio and they saw... Because there's this big debate in the Alien one about this box alien, isn't there?
Yeah.
They claim they saw it and they claim it was never filmed. But, yeah, I wonder. Because the Star Wars thing was a bit like that, wasn't it? Didn't Chaikin only... I don't know how much of it Chaikin actually saw, you know.
Right, okay. So you might have seen some, but not all. And maybe saw a cut that wasn't...
Because they would be keen to get it out at the same time, wouldn't they?
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, I can understand why they make the change and change the ending, because with the last line of Murphy, obviously you want to know that Anne Lewis is okay, but it kind of.
I mean, how much of the original dialogue do you want in adaptions, guys? Would you rather it was all the original dialogue, or are you quite happy for it to sort of stray off?
I mean, for me, some dialogue only works on the screen, and some dialogue only works on the page. There's certain comic book dialogue which you just read and you just think, oh, that is so good.
Yeah.
But when
be gone.
Yeah.
I mean, some of that stuff has to, like those kind of phrases and Dead or Alive, You Coming With Me, got to be in it. But all the other stuff that kind of gets the story along from A to B is going to be different from the film, but it has to be, because you're translating an hour and a half film into a comic special.
Yeah, you know what I mean? That's the thing, isn't it? You're taking a moving image of people walking and talking and you're putting it into a comic of images, aren't you? There's got to be a difference, isn't there?
Yeah. There's one line going back to sort of a Predator Cold War, which I picked off my shelf. And towards the end, when of course the ship is blown up, an explosive is kicked into it naturally, and it blows up in the sky. And one of the characters goes, "Yeah, that's what you get for driving an import." Yeah, I didn't laugh either. I looked at it and just thought, "Oh, fuck off." But it's one of those things that, who knows, if it was on the big screen and timed right, maybe it might have worked.
Maybe it'd work.
But humour doesn't work quite the same way in comics, does it?
No.
Yeah.
And I think some people try to write a movie, especially with these adaptions, they try to write a movie script on the comic page, when sometimes they should be just writing a comic version of these characters. And my first experience with Robocop, apart from the awesome poster, my older brother seeing it and just ranting and raving and talk about how awesome it is. And when you're a kid, the first thing you hear about is the Toxic Waste Man over and over, which when I was a kid I was like, oh god, that sounds awful. Now I fucking love it. But for me, I was always intrigued by it. I had the book adaptation, the novel adaptation, which is
nice.
Which is very I don't know where that is now. That's got lost to time. But in terms of comics, and before I even saw the film, I kind of knew Robocop and liked the comics, because it was I think it was a printed strip. I think, yes, I know what it is. I've talked about them several times before. The Punisher weekly comics, where they were basically they were reprinting the Punisher comics for the UK market. There was loads of them. They were great, and of course with the UK comics you had the main strip, and then they had a backup strip, didn't they? And they had Robocop in that. Do you remember that?
I remember that. Yeah,
was it an adaptation of the movie?
I think it started with an adaptation of the movie. It was definitely started with an adaptation of the movie, and I think it was that classic sort of the comic as well, that you have the first page of it has the vertical strip down the left hand side with the character. Do you know what I mean? That was almost like the banner. G.I. Joe used to do the same sort of thing, didn't it? It had like a vertical sort of banner down the side of the first page. Yeah, and that was Robocop every time. And it just used to... Yeah, I just churned through that. And that was great. Yeah, so my first sort of experience with Robocop was the comic book. But I didn't touch any other comic books afterwards.
Where was it originally published? Do you know, Dan? Was it Marvel? I'm guessing
it was. I think they did...
Yeah, the Marvel must have done the movie.
Which was the movie adaptation.
Yeah.
So it was a super special, was it? One of those...
Well, the UK, I know in the UK we've got obviously this oversized, it's like an A4 edition, but you can tell that's been reformatted. But I think they just did like a special, like
a comic size one.
Yeah, comic size one.
Oh, okay, right, I get you. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know who the artist was for it, but one of the things about like the Robocop in the comics that I think some people who make these comics forget about. God, I'm going to be the negative Nancy, am I, on this episode? Is I've seen like panels where he's jumping about, or he's diving to the left or the right, and I'm like,
he can barely move.
Trouble is, like that kind of like the look and the movement cannot be replicated, and it would essentially just be a series of still images of the character. with no movement in it because there's so little. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so we know, I just looked at Marvel Comics had it from 1987 to 1992.
Okay.
They had it, and I believe Dark Horse then picked it up afterwards.
I've tried to read some of the early Marvel ones, and I don't get it. I don't like beyond that origin story, which I kind of like. I look at with rose-tinted glasses. The other one, it's kind of like Robocop with all the elements that make Robocop stripped out. There's no satire. There's no violence, over-the-top violence. There's no dark humor and throughout. And you're kind of like, well, if you strip all that away, it's kind of...
Yeah. The first 10 issues... I'm just reading this from a Den of Geek article because I just thought, where was it? And certainly after the adaptation, several years later, they would re-release the adaptation in colour as set up for a new Robocop ongoing series, which lasted for 23 issues, the longest of any Robocop run.
For a run these days.
But the first 10 issues are by Alan Grant.
Oh,
okay.
Nice.
Issue 11 is a very strong fill-in story by Evan Skolnick, and issues 12 to 23 are by Simon Furman. Most of the art is by Lee Sullivan, with later issues done by Herb Trimpe and Andrew Wildman.
Oh, nice. Love Trimpe.
It's got some fucking talent on it then.
Yeah. But I think... Yeah, it says here the Alan Grant starts a little off model from the first page when we see a street punk riding a hovering motorcycle.
Yeah, which is not way off base. It's but it's weird. They did it a lot with the 80s. Like they did these kind of adult films, and then kind of tried to make them kid friendly. Like did that with Rambo. Did that with Robocop.
Robocop. Animated series. So if you look on YouTube, animated series of like Robocop.
It's like
Rambo.
Robocop and the Alpha Commandos. They did I mean, I don't want to spoil it with Tony's ones, but they brought figures out, and my older cousins had them, and I was like, "What the hell's this film? This sounds great." But like, if you had taken me to see that film at the age I was at, I would not have got that at all. I probably would have disliked it, to be honest. It would have alienated me but we'll come to that later.
Okay, cool.
I wanted to quickly touch on. So Frank Miller did. He's got his book, which is the adaptation of his screenplay for Robocop 2.
And he's also in the movie, isn't he?
Yeah, he's in the movie. He's like under his name, Frank, in Robocop 2.
He's a scientist, isn't he, or something? Yeah,
he's sort of making the drugs in the Kane's drug lab, and he gets blown up. But he came away very disillusioned. I think he went into Hollywood as like a young man, said, right, I'm going to write the sequel to Robocop. And this is what it is. And the studio just looked at him for, no way, no fucking way are we making a film out of this. I think they said it was deemed unfilmable by the studio. And essentially they broke it up and put elements of it in 3 and took out a lot. Like that whole stuff with Kane and the drug nuke, that's not in his the original work, as far as I can tell. That was all kind of like jammed in there to kind of bring in the actual Robocop 2 character. Which it's called Robocop 2 because there is Robocop 2 in it. The second book I talk about is the adaptation by Avatar Press of Frank Miller's screenplay for the original Robocop 2. It was adapted by Stephen Grant, and the artwork is by Jean-Jose Rip, which I've talked about before with this guy.
Yeah.
I like
his stuff. I like it, yeah.
What was that series? He's done stuff with Warren Ellis, Black Summer.
Yeah, Black Summer. Yeah.
No Hero.
He did some Cross, didn't he, as well? I think.
He did some Cross.
Hyper detailed sort of stuff, isn't he?
Yeah, I would say
he did Wolverine at one point. Yeah.
Okay. He's like Jeff Darrow-like in some respects.
Yeah.
I don't think he's got the same level of craftsmanship.
Yeah.
Or it's a different level. I don't want to disrespect the man.
Yeah.
But
he feels more like a sort of like a Jason Burrows kind of.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. You know that.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
Where
Jeff Darrow... Avatar creator.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah.
So yeah, kind of this is published by Avatar, and like obviously this is it's got no holds barred, as in this is essentially in the same vein as the film and the first film, and it's essentially the second and third film combined, you get the big Robocop 2. You got the Johnny Rehab characters, which are going around trying to force out the citizens of old Detroit to make way for Delta City, and they're doing it completely illegally. There's the police strike still ongoing from the first film. There's absolutely no police.
Right.
Like the streets are an absolute war zone, and the only police officer, apart from his partner, is Robocop working the streets, and Anne Lewis, and he's pushed himself so much he's breaking down, like physically leaking fluid. He hasn't slept in 72 hours, because even though he is he is a cyborg, and he does have like a brain and sort of human components to him, and he's literally driving around the streets shooting people out of his car because he can't stop, because it's just so fucking mental in the streets. It's like a war. There's elements where they breaking down these tenement buildings, and when the kids are coming out, they're being captured and sold into slavery, or sold into like families who don't have kids. And it's like, whoa, fuck me. Essentially, the story kind of continues where I think Frank Miller understands Robocop. When Robocop 1 is like Murphy refinding his humanity and like coming back from being a machine to find out I'm Murphy. And in this second book is he's got his humanity, but he's trying to hang on to it while OCP and the world around him strip it from him, and he's trying to sort of stay who he is, stay Murphy. And they try to overwrite him, like in Robocop 2, where they overwrite his the prime directors, and he basically becomes like a PR machine for OCP, where he like lectures kids on not smoking and stuff like that, and it totally fucks him up. It's an interesting, like the whole book is really heavy. I wouldn't say bleak, but it's really kind of it's quite angry. It's the same satirical vein that moves across the original film. I mean, you got the adverts that run in it. The same tone of sort of like the human life is relatively expendable, but it's a solid read, and I feel it follows up. To be honest, when I first read it, I was a bit so-so about it, but upon subsequent reads, I've kind of like got to enjoy it more and take it for what it is.
Is it quite sort of nihilistic almost? Or as you look at that period of movies as well and think there was a lot of cocaine about that time, wasn't there?
Yeah, God, yeah. I mean, it's it's. There's virtually no kind of like human characters in this which you think they're a decent person. Most of them are absolutely horrible. And there's a fair bit of like TNA in it, and there's a lot of the hallmarks that Frank Miller used in subsequent work that I think he might have taken from Robocop, was inspired by Robocop, or Robocop was inspired by Dark Knight. I don't know. Right. It's such a kind of cross-fertilization there.
It's a really interesting area, because if you look at that 2000 AD documentary, Robocop was originally drawn with Judge Dredd's helmet. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, I mean, I reckon they drew heavily, because in the first film you get there's an Iron Man comic and a Rom comic, which is essentially two men in machines.
Yeah,
and I think they just borrowed heavily from Dredd.
And when Stallone was interviewed about the Dredd movie, he was asked what it's like, and he said, and I think this was to Richard and Judy, if you can believe it, he said, it's a bit like Robocop. Thank you for that, Sly. Yeah.
He's not wrong.
He's not,
not wrong. But yeah, so honestly, if you're a Robocop fan, I feel like picking up.
No, I keep meaning to pick this up, and I like Rip's art. I do like it. There's something dangerous about his art, isn't there? There really is. Something just quite scary. Even the style of it is just, everyone's slightly nasty, and
I mean, he absolutely goes through the ringer in this Robocop. Like, from you see him starting off, and he's relatively kind of like clean. By the end of it, he's just absolutely, every little bit of him's mangled up, or got bullet holes in it, or leaking, or bleeding.
Yeah.
I don't know why he's bleeding blood, because he actually doesn't have blood. I mean, but it's the level of detail on this.
Who has the franchise at the moment? Is it Boom? Do Boom still have it?
I don't know.
I don't know, actually. No, I don't know.
Is there really a calling for Robocop comics at the moment, do we think, or?
I don't know. I don't know.
The remake was. I keep forgetting the remake happened, even though I saw it.
Yeah, and I think that completely sort of nullified a lot of passion for the character. I mean, a lot of the passion that comes from for the character now is the love for that first movie with the documentaries and you know.
Well, I think the third movie was made for the Japanese market, wasn't it? Really,
because it had the ninja in
fly a bit as well.
Yeah. I mean,
there was a series which was okay. I remember the series being okay.
Yeah,
you know.
I tried to watch those films, but they're fucking tough to get through. You know, they did those sort of special 4 films that set like 20 years in the future. Have you seen those ones?
No,
it's like Dark Justice, and they make like a second Robocop, which is his best mate, and he's got like 2 guns and like black metal armor. And his kid's like grown up and now works for OCP as a lawyer. It's got some interesting premises in it, but it's severely hindered by the budget.
Was it animation or?
No, live action.
Oh, okay. I would give that a go. I didn't know about them.
Let's see if I can find
I'm out the Robocop loop.
It's relatively old. Yeah. Oh, sorry. It's called Prime Directives.
Right. Okay.
Series.
Oh, well,
it didn't score too heavily on the 4.6 on IMDb. But
that's the little area I love.
Yeah.
the pocket that Tony loves.
You feel sorry for these actors because essentially they had the suit that they made for Peter Weller, and everyone after that had to be jammed into it, and they sort of fucked around with the suit to get him to fit in it.
That's such a shame, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I do like to talk about it all day, but like very similar to Predator, a lot of what can be said about Robocop is said in that first film, and he gets his humanity back, and then that's it. You can end the film there, like The Matrix.
Yeah, it is one of those like if you want more of the same, are comics really the place for that, or if they are, have they done it well enough?
Come on then, let's pose the question: which comic you have to cross Robocop over with a comic character? Who do you do? Come on, you must have thought of this, Dan.
Oh God, no, I've not really thought about that. He kind of got me there.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, one thing I've been looking at, this to fuel my Robocop obsession, is he appeared in a Mortal Kombat game.
Oh, right, okay.
And you can watch the intro sequences where he rocks up and talks to people. And it's just really surreal watching Robocop, voiced by Peter Weller, interact with these other video game characters.
So you put him in a Fist of the North Star comic or something like that. Yeah. Like fucking Ninja Scroll.
Yeah, any kind of like future crime thing, I guess it would go down well. Or
I'd put him in a fourth world.
I'd
stick him on Apocalypse. See what happens. Yeah.
Martial law would go in there. I guess everything going with Dredd. But
yeah.
Okay. Terminator is the perfect one, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right, man. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. That has intrigued me. I do want to read it now.
Yeah, I want to try and track that down now. After reading it, I was like, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
But from these sort of like singular characters, and so, you know, sort of character franchises to something altogether more epic and sort of the times and the sort of story and franchise that kicked off us talking about potentially doing this episode, and it's Tony's choice, which is
Dan. Tell me of your home world. It is Dune.
Dune, yes.
It's fucking great. Because Vince hadn't seen it or read the novel. Yeah. And
I mean, I saw it tangentially when I was a kid, like Channel 4 late at night. Didn't have a fucking clue what was going on. Do you know what I mean?
That's yeah. Me and Dan like literally know the whole movie.
I fucking love Dune. Yeah, I've seen it so many times. Read the book multiple times.
Me too, man. I absolutely love it. So, Little Potted History 1965 came out in 2 bits. I never realised this came out separate in Analog magazine. Won the Hugo in 66 and the Nebula in 66. 2003 was cited as the world's best-selling science fiction novel. It's political, it's action, it's religious, it's messianic, it's pseudo-religious, it's Machiavellian. It's it's just everything is going on in this book. It's an absolutely incredible book. It was always the argument, what's better, Lord of the Rings and Dune, and I always sided with Dune. I just found it incredibly intelligent. It's intelligent science fiction, which we've kind of lost. It's all about fucking wizards now, so I don't know. But there you go. So
it's a different genre though. Like you got fantasy and you got sci-fi. I mean,
I know, but kids kind of
trouble is like a lot of it's like flying around in spaceships shooting at each other. I'm not hating on Star Wars because that's what Star Wars is, but kind of like...
Oh, yeah, like, yeah.
I hate on Star Wars, another episode, again.
Yeah.
But 5 sequels by Frank Herbert. 1975 was a failed... Well, I don't even know if it was failed. I don't think it ever have got made by Alejandro Jodorowsky, which was just... It's more of a legend. I think he was trying to... Yeah. And to be fair, he knew nothing about the fucking book, and I don't really like...
He literally said he didn't read it.
Yeah.
But like from that, a lot of creators were found that went on to do other good stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where they found Geiger for Alien, didn't they?
Yeah. And there's various interviews that just sound the most bizarre thing, just went on for years and never got made. Roll forward to 1984 when I was 15, and I just read the first trilogy, so Dune Messiah and Children of Dune, and I went and saw it at the cinema, and it fucking blew my mind again. Mm-hmm. And I saw it every week for 3 weeks, and it's a complicated movie. I think it was a bit misunderstood at the time, but I think it's come into being more appreciated. I think since then, it's obviously by Lynch, and Lynch is a genius. I don't think perhaps he would have chosen to made it these days, but it's atmospheric. I suppose the best word, if you had to choose one word, it is the most atmospheric movie you're going to see. It is unlike anything else. It's in 2000. There was a sci-fi TV series they did. The original one, they did the original Dune series. I think it was over 3 TV movies, and then they did a mixture of Dune Messiah and Children of Dune. And there is a book called Paul, actually, which fills the gap between Dune and Dune Messiah, which is worth getting. And now, 2021, we await the release of Dune by Denis Villeneuve. Me and Dan are very excited. I've bought figures which are hugely overpriced. And I know you're a bit of a gamer, Vince. It's the only board game I've ever played. The Dune one.
I want to play the fucking Dune board game.
Yeah, it's really, and I think it's quite expensive if you try and buy the original one, but it's
they've reissued it.
Yeah.
I watched a live stream of like these 6 people who really know what they're doing playing it. It's literally like the book. People backstabbing each other.
Yeah.
Secret alliances, plans within plans.
I think the problem we get with the legend and the narrative of Dune is people will see it and they go, "Oh, this is like Game of Thrones, isn't it? Because it's all different clans and families and areas and planets." And no, Martin has admitted fully that he took huge influence from Dune. And you've got, even if you just watch the intro from the Lynch movie where he's watching all the planets, he's got this sort of, it's like an iPad, isn't it, really? I suppose.
Yeah.
He's watching on this iPad. This is Planet Caladan, this is Arrakis, Dune, and all this sort of thing. And it's like the bit at the start of Game of Thrones where all the cities grow up and it's all different, in the sort of intro sequence. So there's a bit like that. There's I've still got the 3 tapes. I got out of the local library the tape of Frank Herbert reading bits of his novel, and I taped it on my tape deck, and I still own those 3 tapes. That's how I was sort of obsessed with it.
Right, okay. The audiobook, I've listened to an audiobook, and I've really liked it. I got something from it that I didn't get from reading the book.
The great thing that it does is, and he replicates this in the movie, and you get it in the comics as well, is you hear what people are thinking.
Yeah,
it's very clever the way he does it. So there's almost like every character has his inner mind. Well, why has he got he's got the imperial conditioning on his forehead and all this sort of thing. You hear them thinking about stuff.
Yeah, they sort of play it out like there's so much insight that he brings into his characters, and you think, well, that makes absolute obvious sense why that character's acting in such a way, because you can literally hear their reasoning and it's absolutely sound.
Yeah. And Paul is one of the great characters. He really is. Everyone will go, "Oh, he's Jon Snow," but he's so much different. He's Muhammad, he's Jesus Christ, he's all these different things. He's this character who will lead people to freedom. There's a lot going on. I mean, if you read, I don't know whether they'll say this in the movie, but they refer to the Freeman's battle against the Harkonnens as jihad.
It's a jihad, yeah.
Yeah, which is.
So I imagine they will change that.
Yeah.
But I concern me. One of the things they'll say about is the savior thing of a foreigner coming to this, but that's explained in the books. Like the Bene Gesserit have the mission Prativa, where they essentially go down to all these cultures that are found in the Imperium and seed these ideas. So if ever a Bene Gesserit was found lost on the planet or couldn't get home, they could work these myths in their favor and come out on top within these societies.
Yeah, and there is, if you go back to because there's now I think it's like 12 novels at least written by Brian Herbert and Anderson, and there's something called the Butlerian Jihad, which they describe how the Freemen made their way to Arrakis. So it's not quite what you think. It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. I know what you're saying though, Dan. People are going to say, oh, white savior, it's kind of, but it's not that, is it? Because he's part of they've kind of like for centuries Bene Gesserit, who are the sort of witch characters, because all machines are outlawed in this world, which is really interesting. Yeah. Apart from on the planet X, where there's rumours they're recreating machines, so robots and stuff, because there was this war, have been outlawed, and so you have human. Howit the Fur is the
Mentats.
The Mentat, yeah, and they are these sort of.
They're like human computers, aren't they? Human supercomputers.
Yeah. And I'll talk about X in a minute, but there's 3 versions of the comic. There's not many comics about it, really. The first one is the Dune Marvel Super Special number 36. Now, the Marvel Super Specials were, in the most part, movie adaptions, or they did a couple of other things. They did like a couple of TV things. There was one. It was famously the one where Kiss, what part of the series where Kiss put their blood into
the comic. Yeah, I remember reading that. Yeah.
And the names on it, and adapted by Ralph Macchio, not that one. Art by Bill Sienkiewicz, colours by Christine Steele, letters by Joe Rosen, and edited by Bob Budiaski. I've sent you a couple of panels just because I just absolutely love it. I think the colours are incredible in it. Lynch had asked for Sienkiewicz, and there's a couple of YouTube videos you can watch where Sienkiewicz talks about how entranced he became with Lynch's movie making style, and he talks about flicking through the channels and coming across. It was the day that his wife left him, believe it or not. He said, day my wife left me, I was sat there, I was drinking, and I put the television on, and I kept flicking past this film, and it was Eraserhead, and I couldn't stop looking at it, which anyone who's seen Eraserhead can appreciate why. And he just goes back, and he just keeps watching it, and which was kind of his big not breakout hit, but it was where everyone went, fucking hell, who's this dude Lynch? It's like, it's just this sort of strange, tinnitus-filled movie. It's bizarre, but and he talks about the Dune adaptation, and this is for those that maybe saw Sienkiewicz when he started on maybe Moon Knight or something like that, when he was kind of a bit of a Neil Adams. There was a bit of Neil Adams going on with him. He was a bit straighter than he became, and then he went to New Mutants, didn't he? And then we got stuff like Electra Assassin. He's not quite as nuts in this adaptation as he is in for Electra Assassin or the Bear Saga in New Mutants or anything like that.
He's less mixed media, would you say, sort of thing?
Much less. Yeah, much less. He does. He absolutely captures personality in people with sometimes just a few lines. Just beautifully. I sent you a page through where it's a close up on Paul Atreides, and the longer you spend on Dune, your eyes go very brightly blue, which I'm sure people will pick holes in, but because of the spice gets into you. And there's a beautiful page of a close-up of Paul looking out across the desert, and his eyes are like glowing blue. And that's down to Christy Steele as well, because the colours on that are just gorgeous, just absolutely beautiful. It's a very straight adaptation.
Gotcha.
But what he does occasionally, he uses nearly all the dialogue in here is the dialogue from the movies. There's every page you turn around is stuff like, the sleeper is awoken, and God created Arrakis to train the faithful. One cannot go against the word of God, and all this sort of thing. But it's occasionally you get very tightly packed pages, and this wasn't just a super special. It was also split up into a 3-issue miniseries. Marvel did that as well, because at the time Dune was going to be the big thing. It was going to be the next Star Wars. It wasn't. It was considered by some people to be a financial failure. I think it's clawed it back now. But it's one of
those sort of unfair things, though, isn't it? It's like, oh, this is going to be the next this, where it's a completely different flavour.
So it's going to be like Star Wars. Like I said, that I remember the toys, and it's like, these are just not appropriate. It's not. What kids are going to play with this? Like,
Who's going to play with the Baron Harkonnen toy, where he pulls out people's heart plugs and has his boils lanced on his face whilst
grossly overweight flying pervert.
I think the problem with Dune is it's an extremely complicated narrative in the first novel.
Yeah,
they pack it in as much as they can in the movie, and I think for your regular Joe Public moviegoer, they would have trouble realizing what was going on in that movie because it's so tightly packed. I mean, he does his best, and I think it was successful. But I think people who go along just expecting a popcorn movie are going to go, "What the fuck was that all about?"
Yeah.
And I think the problem you've then got is you've got trying to pack that into a comic. And what I think he does quite a lot. I think what Sienkiewicz does here is he goes for atmosphere quite a lot. So he does pack a lot of pages in. There's a lot of panels on a page, but suddenly, I mean, the first page is the one I sent you, which is, it almost looks like a watercolor painting, something that looks maybe out of Heavy Metal, just with the word Dune across the page.
The landscape,
yeah, and with the two moons and just the sand ridges and stuff. And it's a really beautiful thing. It almost looks like you'd buy it, in an art gallery. It's like a cheap print, you'd have in your bathroom. It's almost isn't there? But after that, he goes straight in, and this is the Princess Irulan narrated intro. Where it says the known universe is ruled by Padishah Emperor Shaddam IV. There's that bit. If you get the original soundtrack, this is the first track. It's her saying what's going on, and I think the studio decided that was what was needed. And he does put that in. He puts that as a single page, so we get that as a single splash. And then we go heavily into, tightly packed story. But then occasionally he pulls the camera out, and you get Shia Hulud, who's the big worm. You get him coming out, or you get Baron Harkonnen floating over Jessica, Paul's mother, and this sort of thing. And it's quite a thing. It really is a beautiful thing. It's quite expensive to buy. I don't think you're going to find a good copy, much below about £40.
I tried to track one down, and they were like, "This is a bit rich for a curiosity." I just wanted to kind of read it and stuff, but yeah. Especially, I looked when the new film got announced, so that's fucking stupid straight away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The page of Shia Hulud bursting out is just proper 3D. Yeah, you can see you put your 3D glasses on for that, man. It's just beautiful. A lot of these Marvel Super Specials, there's a Star Trek one, Star Trek the Motion Picture one I've got, there's a Dragon Slayer one, there's all different ones, but a lot of them will have a little backup feature with photographs and stuff. There's none of that in this one, and I get the impression it's because it's a lot longer than the other ones almost.
Gotcha.
There's a lot going on, but it is absolutely fucking gorgeous. You don't even need to read. You've seen the movie. You don't need to read it if you've seen the movie because it's all repeated. But you can look at Sienkiewicz's stuff. It's just beautiful, just incredible. Yeah. I just really love it. And then I've got a couple of other worthy mentions around the Dune stuff, which I've bought recently. Obviously, with this movie, if it's ever going to come out, what is the news on that? Do you know, guys? Or
I thought it was going to come out like when the cinemas open up. I think it is going to get a cinematic release.
Yeah.
Right. Last I read.
Yeah, I think it needs it.
Yeah,
but really it does concern me about a sequel. Like,
yeah,
I presume this is it two halves? It's not all of it in one film.
Yeah,
I think it is. I think it's just the first half, isn't it? Yeah. Which
where
is
do you,
weird.
Where do you define the half? Where does the story?
Well, the graphic novel is like that. The new graphic novel, which is from Abrams Comics and Art, is written by Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson. So they're the two who are doing the sequel novels. Who a lot of these novels come from notes that Frank had written. So so genuinely, Dan and I are on a Facebook group for Dune fans, aren't we? And they rag on those novels a lot, don't they?
They're like lower than the low when you mention those novels.
Yeah.
Got no time for them.
I've read about 4 or 5 of them. They're slightly formulaic, I've got to be honest with you. They really are. The new graphic novel has come in. It's in like if you saw on the shelf, it looked a bit like a big novel, really. It's a nice hardback. It's drawn by Raoul Allen, letters by Patricia Martin, and covers by Bill Sienkiewicz. So he's doing the covers on it. It's a little bit pedestrian compared to what we're used to. It reminds me of a sort of graphic novel that you would see out of someone like NBM or someone like that. I know we've talked about previously.
Yeah,
it's good. It's okay. It's well drawn. Everyone looks a little bit. No one really looks ragged or war torn, or everyone looks a bit clean and fresh faced, and it's that style. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, like the Fremen should be absolutely not clean, and it should be filthy. But
well, this one you don't get there because this one ends. So this is just book 1, and it ends at the point where Paul and Jessica have escaped from the Harkonnen troops who put put them in a flyer to kill them, and Paul uses the voice, doesn't he? He uses
that makes sense to me. That's where you would put the half.
Yeah,
that would the end of the first half.
So they've just got to the siege. They're about to leg it into the siege when the worm appears. You know.
I mean, you could, if you want to do an Empire cliffhanger, have them being captured and taken off, and then end it there. I'm not sure how audiences would react to that nowadays.
Yeah, that's the thing in it. Yeah, and the graphic novel 2 isn't coming till spring 2022. That seems ages away. Graphic novel 2 is called Muad'Dib. So, yeah, it's okay. It lacks. I want to say edge, but it lacks just that flair that you get with the original one. But it's probably a book that people who don't know could pick up and read and begin. You know what kids are like these days. They don't want to read novels, do they? They can read this, and you would probably get a load out of it. There's Liet Kynes and these sort of people in it. The Shadout Mapes. They don't look how I expected them to look, but that's okay. I don't mind that so much. They haven't lent on Sienkiewicz to draw this. The spaceship designs and the sand miners and stuff are different, but it's okay. It's good. It's all right. I'm glad I bought it. It was a really nice copy. And then spinning out of that is the Dune House Atreides from Boom, which is now up to issue 6, which is written by Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson again. So they're really owning the Dune thing. Drawn by Dev Pramanik and I think letters by Ed Dukeshire, coloured by Alex Guimarães. And that's the story of the prequel novels. So the first prequel novels, I think, are House Atreides, House Caladan, House Harkonnen. And they're the 3 prequel novels that Brian and Kevin J. Anderson wrote from Frank's notes that they found.
Gotcha.
And I really like it. I really enjoy it. I reread 4 to 6 yesterday morning. And it covers, so Duke Leto's a young man. Duke Leto goes to train on Ix. And there's just different strands that are coming together. So it's a different emperor because the new one hasn't arrived.
Gotcha. Because there's a whole backstory between the emperor, Duke Leto, and the Baron. They're fucking mortal enemies by the time Duke starts.
Yeah,
Dune starts. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. And Duncan Idaho's a kid. So if you remember Duncan Idaho's backstory from, I think they talk a lot about it in God Emperor of Dune, I think. He's a sort of clone, isn't he, by that point?
He basically serves the Atreides for fucking hundreds and hundreds of years, doesn't he?
So he becomes the hero, Duncan, doesn't he? He dies off quite quickly in the first few books, but this is his story about being a kid, and he escapes the Harkonnens. He's a kid that they hunt, in the Harkonnens hunt, and he escapes, and he makes his way to Atreides, to Caladan, and says, "I want to see the Duke." And that's where I am at the moment on it. It's really good. The art's exceptional. It manages. It does that thing that the prequel novels do, where it flips between planets. So the first bit will be based on Caladan. The next bit will be based on Arrakis. The next bit will be based on Ix. And it's like that. It does that.
It's interesting.
Yeah, really good. And it's got the flavour of Dune for me. I think it's weird that not that much has come out. I think maybe people are nervous about the movie, aren't they?
Yeah, I think see which way the kind of wind blows on it, because I don't think any of us can make a prediction on how it's going to do or not.
Yeah.
Are people going to go back to the cinemas or they're not?
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's going to look absolutely stunning.
Just the adverts look incredible.
Dennis fucking Villeneuve.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing is, his Blade Runner was absolutely, in terms of look.
I love that, man. That's the bleak. He captured it. That start with Batista at the start, and I'm like, fucking, where's this going, man? So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the only thing is, I mean, that didn't necessarily bring loads and loads of people in. So
who's the kid who's playing Paul in the new movie?
I know the guy.
Timothy Chalamet.
Chalamet, yeah. The only worry I've got with him is I understand he's a good actor. I know he did a Woody Allen movie and he did Little Women and a few other things, didn't he? But I want to make sure he looks like he can have a row, because Carl McLachlan is deadly.
Yeah,
you can tell.
Yeah,
he's Chalamet,
because he gets brought up to be he's got all these great traits from all these absolute beasts.
Yeah,
of his mum's, who's one of the better Bene Gesserits that Caius Helamoem has ever trained, her star pupil.
Yeah.
He's got Gurney Halleck, which is basically the king of the street fighters. And Duncan Idaho, which is one of the deadliest sword masters in the known universe.
Yeah.
And
that's
he's
one thing
the protege.
that's the one thing about the Sci-Fi Channel version is the Gurney Halleck character was that bloke out of
Lockstock.
Lockstock. All right, Paul, how's it going?
Yeah.
Son? Right, it's like...
One thing that I always like about the Dune series is like Paul, because he's got these prescience and he can kind of see into like the multiple branches of the future. He sees himself being called Muad'Dib and being the head of like this fanatical army raging across the universe. So when he gets asked about his name, the Fremen meet him in the desert and they say, "What should we call you? Like you're kind of like your name of manhood." And he knows that Muad'Dib is the name that he can't fucking use. So he goes, "What's the name of those fucking little mouses that jump around?"
He says, "What's the shadow in the third moon?" Or something. Like,
that's Muad'Dib. You're like, fuck.
No, isn't that Usul? Isn't it?
No, they call him Usul because that's
right.
But he gets called Paul Muad'Dib, doesn't he? And it's fucking hell.
Oh man, because he keeps trying to. I love it so much.
He keeps trying to stave off this interstellar jihad that he knows he's trying to avoid. But
we have Wormsign, the like of which God has never seen. Fucking hell, the chills, man. I love that movie so much. Yeah, and the comics are good, man. It's one of those things that hasn't, unlike yours, V. No one's like bummed it to death. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Predator comics. If you say Predator comics in a comic shop, everyone goes, "Oh, fucking hell."
Do you think it's because it's a story rather than a character, though? Do you think it's because it's building on like a universe rather than it's not like it's not the Paul Atreides? You're not going to see Paul Atreides versus Robocop.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. But it's the one as well. People ain't prepared to take the time to learn about it. I mean, I've been reading about Dune all my life, and me and the same as Dan, and we've read the novel multiple times. We can quote it, but you look at the writers these days; they can't be bothered to go do that, can they? Yeah. Even spend 9 hours listening to the fucking talking book, they can't be bothered.
I'd be fucking worried about writing a Dune book because the fucking fans would come after you for getting something slightly wrong or not doing it justice.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if you did like a Predator or Robocop one, they'd be like, "Yeah, that's all right." Do it
like that.
Yeah.
But I recommend these. I recommend House of Atreides is brilliant. Absolutely loving it, guys.
Okay, I'll probably be grabbing that.
Probably need a basis in Dune to appreciate it. But then again, it is the most popular science fiction novel of all time that doesn't include wizards. So do you know what I mean? So you'll be fine.
Yeah. It's interesting. I wonder in the new film, we talked about the film briefly, is they add in the weirding modules because they didn't want them to be doing kung fu and martial arts in the sand, did they?
Yeah.
That's what his kind of thing was. So the kind of weirding modules.
Yeah,
that's fine. I've not got a problem. I just wonder if they're going to do that in the new films or not.
Yeah, which is why I think Chalamet needs to stand up, show what he can do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it was made a few years ago now, and he weren't, he was young, wasn't he? I know he's meant to be a kid, but,
Because in that, like, everyone's got like these shields, so using guns is completely pointless.
Yeah.
It's all like knife fighting and...
Isn't Duncan Idaho Aquaman? Is that right?
Yeah.
He's good. He's a good choice for that, I think.
What's his name? What's the fucking actor's name?
Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
That's it.
Because he's charismatic, isn't he? So
he's good, man. He's good. Yeah. I mean, I bet he's holding out for when they get to the fourth movie and he can fucking come into his own.
All the character actors they've got in to do the various parts, I'm like, loving all this.
Yeah. The Lady Jessica choice, I really liked her. I thought she was cracking.
She's a great actress.
Yeah.
Does Oscar Isaac play the father?
Yeah, plays Julie Atreides. Yeah, spoilers. He's not about for long.
No.
And
but he's very likable. I think Oscar Isaac's very likable, and I think that's what you need for that character, isn't it? You've got to be like,
Pirates of V's characters, like we just need the most rat-faced looking fucking actor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Going.
Yeah. He's in Alien 4 as well, isn't he? The geezer who plays that. He's in a load of sci-fi movies, isn't he? He plays Peter DeVries in the Lynch
the original. It's played Worm.
Well.
He played Worm.
Brad Dourif.
Yeah,
one of my favourite actors. Yeah, the voice of Chucky for anyone that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Absolute legend, and Oscar nominated for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So there you go.
Oh, nice.
There you go.
Yeah, he's a hell of an actor. Yeah. He's amazing in Deadwood as well, man. He's great.
God, so good. So what? Those were our little. See, we could have talked about this all night.
Mate, I told you, me and Dan were going for one around there.
Yeah. And keep the conversation going.
We're reining it in.
Yeah, we are.
I could just go on and on for hours.
Yeah. But what are your favourite or not so favourite sort of comic movie. It's not a comic movie adaptation, really, is it? I guess it's a
movie to a comic.
That's movie to a comic, a continuation. Yeah. What are your favourites? And I keep the conversation going, whether it be on the Twitter thread or the Facebook posts. But we want to hear about them, so definitely get in touch. Because I mean, like I say, most of these existing franchises and stuff aren't for me, but you never know. I'm willing to take a punt, and if there's a good one, then
do you think you're turned off more than you're turned on these days, guys? For it's a movie. Look at that movie adaptation.
Yeah,
I think I am.
I think also the fact that like when it's a movie adaptation in the comics, there's so many comics about that. There's just no effort put into the promotion of it. There's no sort of like, this is coming out, check out this comic book. You know, this is the must read.
When was the last big hit, do you think, that was a comic from a movie? I can't even think, guys. I'm not even sure.
Didn't the Star Wars one do well on the Force Awakens? I think that did.
When it went to Marvel, that did do well, didn't it? Yeah,
I think it did really well.
I think, was it Vader Down? Was that Darth? I don't read Star Wars comics.
But you know, they had the Disney money to go into that, and plus they also put an awful lot of those comic books into like I've forgotten the name of it.
What's Loot Crates.
Loot Crates, The name escaped me then. So that's why they got trillions of copies sold. But if I tell you what, if you like them, fucking just buy it.
More power to you. Yeah. And I'm more than happy to pick up a movie adaptation if someone says that's really good and worth checking out.
Yeah. And you know why? Because comics are the best.
Yeah. I would like to see a little bit of canonization sometimes. Because just for the fact, you know, sometimes it's just a little bit of a sprinkling for the fans, and I know they do it with certain, like, I mean, if you take the Mandalorian series, and they sprinkled in characters that were in the animated shows, and people are like, oh my god, that means that existed. It'd be nice to see if, like, you know, there was a little.
Yeah, that's interesting to make it all one story.
Yeah.
I think didn't they try that with Doctor Who at one point? I got a feeling like some of the comics were canon, and I got a feeling that the Big Finish audio became canon as well.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, the Big Finish is definitely canon, isn't it?
For me, it's all about fucking canon. It's got to be.
Me too. I'm not interested if it doesn't affect it in any way, you know.
Yeah,
if it doesn't affect it in any way, and then the other thing is, I've banged this fucking drum so much. If it's just, two fingers, it's going to be like a fresh story, whatever. So don't bother then. Write something else.
Yeah. In terms of like an adaptation, you know, I'm more interested in, you know, a story of that pilot from one of the X-Wings that took part in the final fight than I actually am in the final fight.
Can't you?
Yeah,
that's easy to do.
Yeah. So the same things happen. You just see it from that perspective, which was a small comic that Daniel.
They can do that. Yeah.
I watched a bit of with Son. Like, there's a new series on Disney Plus called The Bad Batch, and it's from Star Wars, and it deals with like a series of like stormtroopers.
Oh yeah, it's the clone troop, a bunch of clone troopers, isn't it? Yeah.
But they don't kind of follow the orders and kind of go off on their own. But there's a character in that who's like appears as a young Jedi, and then goes on to like appear in that cartoon Rebels, which my son also enjoyed back in the day. But so Freddie Prinze Jr. does the voice.
He's a fucking brilliant voice actor.
But he doesn't change his voice that much for when he gets introduced as a character, as a child.
As a child, so he's got the same. Still got a deep voice.
Half watching it, like when my son's watching it, and like they say, "Oh, what's your name?" He's like, "Hey, my name's so and so." So I'm like, "What? What the hell was that?"
if I was Freddie Prinze Jr. and they said to me, "Oh, you haven't made many movies, you're just doing voice acting work, and your voice sounds funny in that film," I'd say, "Yeah, but I got to bang Sarah Michelle Gellar for all those years, didn't I?"
Yeah, beats that. And then,
well, he's still married to her, isn't he?
Is he?
Yeah. Yeah, they're married.
Good on him.
Andy was a writer for WWE for many years.
He wasn't, was he?
Oh, yeah.
What do you mean a writer? Is it all made up? Don't ruin it for me.
Oh, sorry. Let's change the subject.
Lest we forget, he appeared in the film Wing Commander.
The classic Wing Commander. Classic.
Series of games which I loved, and the film did absolutely no justice to
whatsoever. Yeah. But like, speaking of doing some justice, let's do some justice to the shout outs this week. So what have we got, gents?
Fire up the notes.
Got a few. I'd like to thank Barry John Sullivan for spanning us not once, but 3 times on the Austin Comics Twitter account, trying to sell his copy of Spider-Man Unlimited, Issue 1, Maximum Carnage Begins. Thanks, Barry.
Good luck with that, Barry.
Yeah, I like you replied with some gif. Who's that? Is he a basketball player just going, what the fuck is that? You know?
Yeah. He sort of looks at the camera and all the question marks.
It's like the best gif ever. Yeah.
Like, where'd this come from?
If I've got 2 more quick ones. If you've got a comic that you have tried to get published and haven't managed to, then why don't you go to @Flops Comics? Yes, that's real. FLOPS Comics on Instagram and Twitter. And there's a dude who's come out recently. His name's Alan. I can't vouch for him. I don't know how, if he's doing the right thing or the wrong thing. But he seems very polite and very friendly and very enthusiastic. And he won't pay you, but he is looking to publish. He's going to Kickstarter soon. Publish those stories that maybe just didn't make it into an anthology you wanted to put it into, or you never got it made, and that sort of thing. I think he's probably looking for short stories. So it's Flops Comics on Instagram and Twitter. Have a look at that. And a big thanks to Sean Gabberin, who did a brilliant landing of a story. We won't ruin it, but Let's All Die issue 4. I think is about to hit Comixology. Yes. Fucking hell, that's a good ending. Yeah,
I think the whole series is really good. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
That's the kind of comics I want to read.
Me too, man. Yeah. So he's basically taken a movie cliche and just put it in a comic and turned it into something absolutely fresh, isn't it?
Yeah, played with it, done it good.
Yeah. Works really well. And we're big fans and friends with Sean, and go back and listen to his episode because he's top dude. Yeah. And he's been at a comic convention the last couple of days. I sent him a message saying, fucking, you're lucky. He's been to an outdoor comic convention.
Well, bloody hell, okay.
It's starting to happen, slowly but surely. Hopefully everyone's being safe and sensible. But, marts, shops, conventions, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Dan, do you have any shout-outs?
Yeah, I'm going to give a shout-out to Mike Garley's Samurai Slasher collection. This one's really battling the odds. We've got 7 days when you listen to this, and we've got a bit of a way to go. So if you're considering backing it, I would get your pledge in ASAP. It's tough sometimes when you
it's got about a week to go, isn't it? I think. Is that right? Yeah.
You put these projects out and you don't know how it's going to go, and if it doesn't go according to plan, it can be quite demoralising. But
I don't think
it's a fantastic comic.
It didn't work, but if it doesn't work, it's not because of the quality of the comic these days. Look at some of the shit that's on there. Do you know what I mean? I think it is a quality. Yeah. There's some great stuff in that book. I reviewed some of it years ago, and there's some really different kind of stories in there, and it's worth a look. Yeah.
Sometimes it could just be the wrong time, and when's the right time? I don't know. But sometimes it can be the wrong time, and that saying, you can do everything right and still lose. And sometimes that's what it is.
And it's the wrong time for my shout-out because it may come during my recommendation.
Oh, okay.
Speaking of which...
Go on, MV, don't ruin it. You go first.
I don't have a recommendation. Yeah. So
you don't have one?
No, I've been reading Viz all week. Does everyone have this? Like comic readers, like by the side of your bed, you have a pile of comics and graphic novels you've read. There's piles up until the missus says, "Get out of the way." Yeah,
I've got a few. I picked up a couple of indie comics on Comixology this week. That there's a to read pile to the left, to the right of me, just everywhere at the moment. And
stuck in the middle.
Yeah, I'm just stuck in the middle with you.
So what are you stuck in the middle with? Come on, give us that.
But however, what I did get a chance to check out this week was sent through by the wonderful champ that is James Lawrence.
Yes,
it is his next collection, which is coming to Kickstarter. This is my shout out that I'm going to blend into a recommend.
Nice.
Yes, it's coming to Kickstarter on June the 1st. This is the La Mariposa, the Legend of La Mariposa, The Climb and Other Stories, which there's a big hubbub about, and everyone's excited about it, as well they should be, because that character and these stories are fucking awesome. You just check it out. Basically, this book is, for those who don't know, La Mariposa is basically it's a wrestling comic, but part adventure, and there's sort of like There's demons, there's magic, there's suplexes, there's crazy characters, wonderful designs, just so much kinetic action, lots of laughs as well, and it's just well worth your time. I mean, I know originally it was a webcomic, The Demon Gauntlet, which his original Kickstarter book, sitting proudly on my shelf back there.
He was a guest in like the first year, wasn't he? Is that right?
I think second year, wasn't it?
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
It could be. What are years anymore? And we spoke to him last time we were at Thought Bubble as well, and he had the book out there as well. But basically, even before he did that collection, he did some like mini comics, sort of when he was doing the web comic, which was like full color, and he was putting pages up, and in between the chapters, Dan, much like you, sort of like in between an issue. He sort of worked on some other bits, and he did some mini comics, like little black and white sort of mini comics that he sort of produced and he printed, and he would have them at his table. If you ever went to sort of James's table at a convention, they were like, I mean, I've already got the 3 mini comics, because I just wanted the collection, but now he's put those mini comics together in full color, a proper print debut. This one has those 3 main stories in there. There's also a bunch of like sort of shorter sort of bits that he drew for like different events and all kinds of stuff. As he says in the introduction, because he was bored, which is a wonderful thing to do. If you're bored, draw the character you love working on.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's 3 fantastic tales in this, and I don't want to spoil it for you, but there's sort of there's spirits, there's monsters, there's La Chupacabras, there's amazing sort of wrestling moves. There's a super kick, which is a splash page, which I absolutely love, because it is someone literally getting kicked out of all of their clothes.
We've all been there.
We have the sort of like kicking someone straight out of their shoes, but like she is literally kicking someone, and it's just a load of clothes in the air, and you can just see the feet of the person on the edge of the page. It's beautifully done. It's great. I say it's great for kids. Would love this as well. It's a wonderful character, very well thought out. If you're new to the character, this is the perfect time to get this and then pick up the main book as well. I don't know whether we're going to see more La Mariposa. I think so. I know James has got lots of sort of things on the go, but this is well worth your time. So get on the Kickstarter. I mean, he very kindly sent through this to us. Which is very nice of him. Some people don't have to do that before Kickstarter even comes out. But I will be pledging to get because I just want a print book. I'm a print nerd. Do you know what I mean? I need to complete my collection, and this is like 124 pages as well. This is nothing to be sniffed at. He's actually taken the time to go into those old books, added colours, and he's made it a collection that is worth your time and money. I'm sure there'll be all kinds of other stuff on the campaign as well, because the dude knows what he's doing. Plus, just every page is a joy, and he knows how to do a fight. Do you know what I mean? For a book that's about a character that is a wrestler, you want to see wrestling moves. You want to see like pages of just people pummeling each other, which happens. There's a wonderful page between it's almost like there's 3 characters sort of fighting at the time. It's La Mariposa. There's a creature and a goat getting involved. You got to read it to see what it's all about. But it is just it's a 16 panel page, which is just punches, kicks, just someone gets head-butted, and it's just got the word butt. Then when they get head-butted again, it says butt 2, the buttoning. And then on the third headbutt, it's butt 3, revenge of the butt. And all of this happens on one page, amongst other things. If you haven't checked out these books, like we spoke to James a while ago about La Mariposa, now's the time to get on it. It is, and there's some wonderful prints and sort of pin-ups in there as well. And if you like luchadors, and Tony's got a wrestling mask that he says,
I did quite like that mask now.
Yeah, he said it was a Zoom filter, but it's actually a wrestling mask. So yeah, and that's just a great aesthetic anyway, isn't it? Those Mexican wrestlers.
They are cool,
those...
aren't they? Yeah, they are. When Mignola did it in Hellboy, it's fucking brilliant. I love it.
Yeah, because there's a certain sort of superhero like quality and like fantastical quality to those sort of characters anyway, isn't there?
Dandraw's a mean one as well.
Yeah.
I'd like to point that out.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So
El Marvo.
Exactly.
Indeed. So definitely check this out. You can sign up to signing up to a Kickstarter so you're notified is all the rage now, isn't it?
Yeah, that's coolness.
So we'll put the link in the show notes. But yeah, love this character, and I'm actually going to go back to Kickstarter to see if there's any other goodies I can get along with the book.
Oh, nice one, yeah.
I'm a sucker. I'm not. I don't think there will be, but I'm a sucker for a T-shirt, man. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I like T-shirts. I'm not fussed about badges anymore, but I do like the odd T-shirt.
Yeah.
I need more black T-shirts in my life. Yeah, that's what I need.
Yeah. And that's mine. Okay, who would like to go next? Oh, well, it's not going to be Dan because he's been reading Viz all week. Which is no bad thing. But Tony, what's yours?
Mine's a quick one. So it's a recommendation. As you all know, I've been quite critical of autobiographical comics in recent years. So I think probably all three of us have had our little moments with them. They can, let's just say, in general terms, come across as a little bit self-indulgent, perhaps even veering into a little bit of attention-seeking. And call me old-fashioned, I do like something to happen in the story. Doesn't have to be a fist fight, doesn't have to be a car chase, just something with a little bit of meaning somewhere, something that is interesting. I don't really care what you have for breakfast, or that you can't get out of bed. It doesn't bother me. I'm not going to read it for that reason. But there is another skill involved in autobiographical comics, and I think this is something that is exhibited by this comic I'm going to talk about, and it's about putting yourself out there on a page, creating something that is taken from within and put on a comic page. The translation of, what's that Francis Bacon quote about art, is the translation of one thing into another, and whether it be an emotion or a colour or a mood into something. And I think there's a lot to be said about doing that creatively and originally. And I think, and what this person does, he manages to put the human condition on the page, and I think that done convincingly. And I'm not always convinced by autobiographical comics, because I think people just put what they want you to see. Sometimes, I think this does this well, and this is, so I'm doing King Cat Comics. So it's the King Cat Comics and Stories from John how do you say it? Porcellino. I was put onto this by a combination of things, really. I was put on this by Tom Stewart. And a couple of interviews he did, and he's been talking to me. And they're a series of mini comics. They're like an anthology, a collection done by one person. I bought a big box of them. I bought, I think, issue 70 to issue 80 sort of thing. They're $5 each, black and white. They remind me. I'll tell you who they remind me of. Even though this dude is American, I think he's American. I don't think he's Canadian. Is Elizabeth Queerstreet, who I kind of like. I think if there's ever a person who puts a lot of personality and a lot of I love really reading Elizabeth. They're not always the most rendered pages, but there's a lot of personality, there's a lot of meaning, and there's a lot of humour and quirk on it. And I really like the stuff. And it's maybe something by Simon Morton, who I'm also a fan of over here, who manages to communicate things through art with not a huge amount of lines sometimes, but he manages to communicate stuff that is what comics is about for me. As I say, John has done about 80 of these. They're a collection of different things. They're A5. There's a few text pieces in there. There's sort of strips about what's happening to him and what he's done, and there's even like little bits of poetry. There's book, movie, and music recommendations. Everyone has this sort of it's a sort of section that is just about Top of the 40, it's called, and it's just things he's listened to, or things he's watched, or things he's read. And I was looking through and that's interesting, I didn't know about that. I've never considered listening to a Waylon Jennings album, but I kind of like this dude, so it might push me to do it. There's a lot of talk about nature in it. There's even a bit of bird spotting in it, which obviously I'm now a big bird spotter, as I've told you. I own binoculars now. Yeah, completely. It's really good. He does, I think, Fantagraphics, I think it is, do like a collection of them. But they're just cool little things. The sort of thing that we should be seeing more of over here. I think we kind of forget this a bit now. It all seems to be webcomics now, but just low key, make these comics, make a little collection, talk about what's going on, talk about something meaningful, talk about, show us your art, show us your thought process, show us about what's going on, talk about comics, talk about music, talk about movies. It's good stuff. And there's a whole big section in this one, in issue 80, about dreams he's had, and it's totally and utterly honest, and it's really interesting to me. I just sort of it's good. So it's John Porcellino. I'm trying to find a website for you, but I can't, so I'll put it.
We shall put it in the show notes.
That's the one. Cheers, dude.
Lovely. So
nice one.
There you go, folks. Where has the time gone? That's what happens. That's what happens when we talk about. I mean, we sort of we geeked out a little bit talking about some things that are near and dear to us, because every single one of those comic franchises we talked about, those movies are. Oh,
I love them.
They are part of our lifeblood.
Oh, there was that picture going around this week of like what was on at the cinema, and it was like Predator, Full Metal Jacket, Lost Boys, and something else. Like, man, they were the golden age.
What do we get now? Fucking Maze Runner or something, don't we? Some shit.
Shout out to all you Maze Runner fans out there.
We could go on and on, but it's like cinema becomes a product now. Like,
Yep. And now things are just rebooted. Oh my god.
We get a fucking. Well, I'm gonna go on that Army of the Dead. What a load of nonsense that was. Just.
I mean,
boring.
Well, okay, right. We're not going to go into the film here, but that was interesting you said there, because you said what a load of nonsense, and I thought, well, what did you expect? And then you said boring, and I was like, oh, that's the cardinal sin.
That's the biggest damnation of all, isn't it?
Yeah.
Be anything, boring. Just don't be boring.
Yeah, an over-the-top zombie film set in Las Vegas, and it's called Boring.
Directed by Zack Snyder, and it's boring. I don't know how.
I haven't watched it yet. I haven't got Netflix where I am, but I'll watch it when I get home.
Just cut. It's 2.5 hours long. Just cut an hour down.
Right.
Yeah.
Are there any Icelandic ladies singing in it that I can watch?
Sadly,
no.
Okay.
Yeah. And there won't be any slow motion hot dogs moving through the air.
Is there any Ya Ding Dong in it?
Have you seen the film Aliens? Tony, have you seen the film Aliens? Because there's large portions of the film Aliens in that film.
I've heard there's a bit where they get in the lift and the music's playing or something like that.
Yeah, there's bits like, oh no, they've left us behind. Oh no, there they are. Like stuff like that. And you're like, oh, I've seen that in a film before. You'd be like that all the way through.
Do you know what?
I do like Batista though. I like him.
Yeah, I like him.
Yeah.
There's lots about the film I like. I like the concept, I like the actors, I like the action, I like everything about it. But it's just, God.
I watched the film Psycho Gorman the other day.
Oh yeah, what was that like?
And do you know what? I like the directors because they did that film The Void that I really liked. I really wanted to like it more than I did, and it's purely down to and the main sort of character who is like a Earth destroying villain is really well done. like they've got that on point. The dialogue he speaks. It's just unfortunate that the in the kids in it, the main girl is so annoying. Annoying. Man. To the point of like you hate them. Do you know what I mean?
It's so tough. I never
made a movie about myself.
It's so tough with fucking like kid actors.
Yeah,
it's just
But it's not so much it's not like an annoying actor playing a nice role. The role is written to be just an absolute bastard as well. So you kind of I don't know. I like it for all the crazy sort of over the top visual effects and stuff, but. It's worth checking out, people. If you want to check it out, check it out. But I was like, I don't know how to feel about this. There's parts that I like, and yet why am I upset by some of it? But we hope you weren't upset about this episode. If you were, you can email us. See, that was smooth, wasn't it? Several different ways you can get in touch with us to talk about comics. Look, Tony, just don't interrupt me now. I'm waiting for him to say something.
What did he say?
No, in all seriousness, though, shut up. Get in touch with us. You can email us awesomecomicspod@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter @theawesomepod. On Facebook, there's facebook.com/awesomecomicspodcast, and join the community group Awesome Comics Talk. If you're an actual real person who wants to talk to real comic book people about cool stuff, please join. Because
Tom's
you're welcome.
been on the warpath this week, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He takes no shit.
Our lovely mod, Tom Curry.
Takes zero shit.
He takes zero shit and gives zero fucks. That's what Tom
I
Curry
had
is.
to knock back a Kickstarter post that was just the worst. It was like a blank white graphic with the words 5 days. And it was like, 5 days till this Kickstarter launch. It's like, well, what's that? What's that?
The indignation in your voice, Dan.
Yeah, it's just... What does this tell me?
But seriously, though, join that group because there's a fantastic group of people talking about comic art, and the conversation of this episode will probably keep going in the thread as well. So get involved. Thank you for listening to us, whether it was on the website awesomecomics.podbean.com. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts,
Podcasts, so listen to that.
Yeah, it's that time of night. The coffee's wearing off. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe and leave a review. It helps get the word out about the show, more people. And if you're a new listener to the show, by the way, welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Numbers have been going up, haven't they?
Yeah. Thank you very much for sticking with this nonsensical stuff that we like to entertain you with every week. Whether you listen to us on Apple Podcasts or other networks like Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, Podnose, Podknife. What other networks are we on, Tony?
We're in Pod. The slow knob enters the bum.
Look to that place where you dare not look. You see him staring back at you. That meme I sent you in the week has got a picture of a glory hole with Carl McLaughlin's face being pushed through it.
God,
he's got like a smile on his face, like
bemused mind killer.
I mean, every day the stuff that I get sent on that WhatsApp group is
brilliant.
Yep, but the one that will always make me laugh. I mean, most of it makes me laugh, but the one that will always make me laugh, no matter how many times he posts it, is Dan's meme of this weird thing.
What is that?
Every day we stray further. God. What does it say, Dan?
Every day we stray further from God.
Yeah.
Something like that. It's like a kind of plasticine pigeon. Like when Tony posts up something really just like bloody hell, and like you put that image up as a response,
and it just makes me laugh every time.
Yes, it's every day we stray further from God. The one I did it in response to this was a poster that had been put up, like a A4 poster that someone had printed out and put it in the lift, and it went, "Do not click buttons with genitalia." Cameras watching. Right. It was the University of Alabama.
I thought it was the one which was where the hearse had been in a car crash and the coffin had fallen out the back window, and someone had said, "That's the second car crash my dad's been involved in this week."
Oh
God! Dark humour.
Jesus God. But seriously, stay tuned to the show because you'll get more quality content like this on a weekly basis. But seriously, folks, thank you very much for listening. Where can people find us online, etc.? Tony?
NeverIronAnything.com.
Dan Butcher?
I've just finished the latest issue of Vanguard, so you can read it on there or read it on Comic House, which should be uploaded this week. Or alternatively, my Patreon. I'm actually scripting a video to go up this week about incorporating 3D into your comics. It's a tough one. There's a couple of technical challenges of how am I going to film myself doing the 3D to show you, but it's a challenge I readily accept.
You heard it.
You give them what they want on your Patreon. There's no slacking on yours, babes.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I long for some of those comedic videos that you did on your Patreon.
One where you point at the camera and wink. I used to like them.
I have to add that back in.
Yeah. Is the video of you still like knocking over the computer and just kicking it loads of times?
Yeah, it's all still on there. I can send you the channel.
It's so good, and well worth the Patreon. You can find me online at Jester Diablo on Twitter and Instagram. And once again, thank you very much for checking us out this week. Come back same time next week because it's a weekly show and that's what we do. But until then, have a brilliant week. Thank you very much for listening. No matter where you are, we hope you're safe, healthy and well, and we all love you, even Tony, no matter what he says. See, that's love.
I'll tell you what, we almost fucked up.
Why?
We nearly forgot that there's the drink and draw this Friday.
Oh, nicely done. Good save.
Tom, we want to say first, Tom.
Tom's listening going, they've not said it.
We're sorry. We're sorry.
Yeah.
We start off with the 3-point apology, but first...
Yeah. No, seriously. If you enjoyed this episode, then this Friday... What's the date this Friday?
This Friday, Vince, it will be the 28th of May.
The 28th of May, 7:30 UK time. But from wherever you are in the world, if you can get the time zones lined up, everyone is welcome to join us for the monthly drink and draw, hosted by Tom Curry at this Chucklehead on Twitter. Get in touch with him. He sends out, on the Awesome Comics Talk group, there's also a link there as well. Everyone is welcome. It's literally just joining up with a lot of like-minded people, just talk about comics, just chill out, and it's a great social event. So, it's lots of fun. You don't even have to talk much. Most of the time that I'm there, I don't really say that much because I'm too busy drawing.
And it'll just be us this time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's code.
For everyone who was there, they know what I mean.
Yeah. So, yeah.
We might be talking Dune again, Tony. Or Gamera.
Oh, mate. Yeah.
So, if you are new to the drink and draw, say hello, because we'll welcome everyone.
Yeah, come along. Yeah, you'll like it.
Yeah. So, hope to see you there. And once again, Tom, from all of us, we're sorry. We almost forgot it. Well done, Dan. So, thank you for listening, everyone. Have a brilliant week. We hope to see you on Friday. But if not, we'll catch you back here, the same bat time, the same bat channel, with a load more sort of comic talk.
Yes.
So from Dan, Tony and myself, have a brilliant week. Read loads of comics. And what should they do, guys?
Stay awesome.
Stay awesome.
Well, it was almost there. Well, it's all right considering you're like in the middle of nowhere, Tony.
I know.
In the windmill.
Yeah.
It hasn't stopped raining yet.
No, Tony, don't put your head out the window. Don't put your head out the window. No. Oh, he's gone.
Windy Miller.
Is there a fucking sign that says, like, don't try and hold on to the windmill? Because I can imagine some wally...
It doesn't go round, sadly. I'd love to say we did go round, but it doesn't.
Yeah,
I might try and grab it later, do like a, Buster Keaton thing.
Yeah, he's talking about the windmill, by the way. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
See ya.